Welcome to Shawn White's Guide to Life. I learned this because it was true.
You sound good. Let's keep talking.
Bells and whistles and thimbles too. These are all the things I find in my shoe.
Perfect.
Cheese and beans and bells and cones. Oftentimes, people say these things to me on the phone.
I've known Shawn for a long time, and it started off way back when we all worked together at a casino, and he was, I've told this story, and I actually put audio to it, to one of them. I should find that. That would be perfect for this. But it was how I met him, and it was through a bathroom, and he was walking in with some cowboy boots, and so I'm going to find that clip, Shawn. And I'm going to put that whole story in there. All right. And then after that, Shawn would come around to where I was at. And every night before he left, he'd always give me some interesting little quick thing, like either a limerick or just some profound thing to say. And over the years, I just started recording him, and I actually have a lot of recordings of that.
Well, it's, whenever you work in the casino industry, you need some kind of levity to lift your day. I figure, this gentleman by the name of Polly deserves some uplifting spirit zones. So as I left, I was like, you know what, let's put a smile on this cat's face. And that was always the goal.
Well, thanks, buddy.
Of course, we also ended up talking a lot about movies, I think, about hanging out the window just before the stinky exit for that the casino. Does it still smell like outside of that door?
Well, I don't want to talk anymore about that place. Let's talk about more about what has happened really much. Let's take the story, the journey, if you will, from that point in time. So after you'd left or whatever, life had totally changed for you. Can you get into a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I was working at the casino. And during that phase in my life, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew, I thought that I was like super stressed out. The reality was I was in like tremendous amounts of pain. And for whatever reason, I had a hard time breathing, and my body just felt like it was, horrendous. There's very few words to describe what it felt like. But I ended up leaving the casino because I thought that I was burnt out. But really, I just met my threshold for agony. And it was one of the best choices to make because I didn't have insurance anymore when I was working there. So we roll into like January. I'd left the casino. I was going to school full time to become a massage therapist. And one morning, I was foolish, actually, really foolish. I left the window open in January. I was like, it's cool. The fresh air will be great. And so I wake up in the morning and it is like super, super cold, and I'm laying underneath of the sheets, and I start coughing. And whenever I start coughing, I feel this this oily, slick, thick gunk that's in my throat. I cough and I cough and I keep coughing something up, and it tastes really gross. And I don't want to reach out and grab like some tissue because, well, it's really cold outside of those blankets, and I'm kind of wrapped up in a bundle. Eventually, after I've coughed up so much, I'm like, reach out and I grab it really quick, and I start coughing into the Kleenex until like it gets completely soaked, and I reach out and grab the box, and I keep going, and I always keep soaking them. And then I'm like, okay, what is going on? What is this? Because this is not phlegm. I can't see it because I'm hiding underneath the blankets. And so finally I will myself to endure the cold, and I pull down the sheets, and I look at the tissues, and they are just soaked with crimson red blood. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is probably not a good sign. So I close the window, and I put some like pajamas on or something. And now that I had recently gotten insurance, I figured out who I needed to call, and I called some people. I ended up going to the hospital, and I didn't think to myself, Shawn, you should probably go to the emergency room. Coughing up blood is a really, really bad thing. I've learned after the fact. But I don't overreact on anything in life, so maybe I underreact. But so I go and go to the hospital, and the doctor's like, "Well, we think you have pneumonia." I'm like, "Okay," and they do some tests and scans. One of the more memorable moments of talking to that doctor was he was like, "So, what kind of blood are you coughing up? Is it like streaky? Is it this or is it that?" And I said, "Well, you want to see it?" And he's like, "Well, sure." And what I had done is after I had filled up like a bit of a coffee cup filled with blood, I had started putting it in Tupperware containers. So I put it in a Tupperware container and I pulled it out of my pocket and I said, "Well, this is what I've been coughing up. This is some of it." And there was just like filled. It was pretty gross. It was a lot of blood. And he's like, yeah, we need to get you scanned and really checked out. Unfortunately, I was misdiagnosed, which is, part of the journey. He said that I had pneumonia and kept having pneumonia as I kept coughing up blood, kept wheezing, running out of breath and stuff. And one day I was hanging out with a friend of mine and I was trying to work out and get on the treadmill and this run out of energy, run out of breath, get off, go to the restroom, cough up blood, wash my hands, come back, try to do it. It would just be like a constant thing.
And they said it was pneumonia
just like whenever,
at the time, right?
Yeah, and there was a point when the doctor, I kept going back to him. I was like, "I'm still coughing up blood." Like, "Well, that's kind of what's going to happen. You're going to cough up blood for like the next 6 months. You're okay."
Okay.
And, and I'm going to massage school during this time. And there's a whole nother story that's tied into that one. But I could barely breathe. I was just like, whenever I would go and do like a massage, I would just sweat bullets. Even if I was just standing, I'm just constantly sweating, constantly hurting, constantly hard to breathe. And, it's, going out on a date whenever you're coughing up blood is brutal. It is, I mean, there's no other, there's maybe a few other cock blocks that you could do that would really ruin that date. Coughing up blood whenever you're just ask some chick out on a date.
On the list, right?
It's pretty brutal. Yeah. No, I don't have the plague. I'm serious. This is normal. My doctor said this is normal. So, you learn to hide it because you don't want people to ostracize you. And of course, I made the school that I went to, they knew it wasn't contagious, but they were not very compassionate. I was like, "I can't stand and do my massages." And they're like, "Well, it doesn't matter."
And this is all still before you were diagnosed, right?
All this was before I was diagnosed.
Jeez.
I mean, hell, this was a cool story. It's kind of a side story. When I got attacked by a mastiff one day, this is before diagnosis too. I was walking around, and what's weird about it is I had this impulse. I said, "Shawn, you should grab your machete before you go outside." I go, "That's stupid. If I think that I need a machete just going for a walk, I probably shouldn't go for a walk, Shawn." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll just leave it in the living room." So I go outside and I go for a walk, and I get this danger sense go off like I'm Spider-Man. And I turn and I see these two dogs are following me. One's like, "Hey, dude, you're cool," and the other one's like, "I'm gonna kill you." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And one was like a really cute, sheepdog, one of those big white ones, fluffy. Everyone loves them. The other one was this blue, 160-pound mastiff, just enormous head. And right as I got to my front yard, I take a step into the yard, and the dog leaps at me and tries to bite me, and I narrowly miss it, narrowly misses me. And I had to make a really quick decision. I was like, I either run and die, or I fight this dog and die. "Well, do you give up your arm, Shawn?" I'm like, "Well, he's going to have to earn it." So he jumped at me again, so I punched him in the face, and I think I surprised him, and he was like, "Whoa, he's going to fight me. He's not just like a little kid who's going to be mauled by me." Mm-hmm. And, he tried to bite me 5 times. I punched him in the face once. I missed the other 4 because, he was dodging as he was trying to bite me because he didn't want to get hit. Until eventually his owner showed up and zapped him into oblivion. He was like, sorry, dude. I'm like, "Well, maybe you should take care of your dog because I'm a 240-pound man. And if he's attacking me, the women and children in the neighborhood are going to be murdered. So please take care of your animal." And I try to look into it further, and no one would do anything. He said, "Well, did the dog bite you?" I go, "Dude, this dog is like Arnold Schwarzenegger with a chainsaw for an arm, right? If this dog bit me, I would be dead." So, I mean, sure, I won in points if this were boxing. But if Mike Tyson punched me in the head, I would be done, right? So you have to rely on those points to win. It's hardly any fair. And they wouldn't do anything because the dog hadn't actually bitten me. Even though even afterwards I saw the dog was wrong. Right, but it was great. Eventually, the anxiety of that dog went away whenever the dog went away. So the people moved away, and it was great. But that was a cool experience, I felt. It was cool in that, every hardship that we face in life is an opportunity to learn how to help someone. How exactly, like punching a dog in the face when it's trying to kill me is going to help me, I don't know, but it's funny, right? It's a funny, really cool story. I've been given the blessing of an interesting life, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, getting attacked by this giant mastiff. This is just kind of, things that you expect in my lifestyle. Not that I chase these things down. I'm just a weirdness magnet. So I was working out one day with my buddy, and going back to that story, I'm working out and I'm running out of breath and I'm excusing myself to cough up blood, wash my hands and come back. And eventually he says, Shawn, you've got to stop. You need to go to the emergency room. I go, oh man, it's cool. Everything's all right. People just cough up blood. And he's like, no, people don't just cough up blood, and people don't just run out of energy right when they step on a treadmill. You have to go. And so I was like, well, I don't want to go to the emergency room because they're going to make me wait anyways. Another bonehead decision. And because later I would find out if you go into the emergency room and you're coughing up blood, you get what they call priority. And but I didn't think, I just don't want to sit in the emergency room for 40 billion hours waiting. But just went to an urgent care. And when I went to the urgent care, the guy's like, well, all these scans and stuff. It's by default to check mark you for pneumonia. But I don't think that you have it, but we're going to say that you do. We're going to give you like these pills and stuff. And we're going to give you a shot. But I'm going to refer you to some pulmonologists. Get in with them. So I call the
pulmonologists are like vein people and stuff.
No,
right?
no, they're lungs. Pulmonologists do like lungs and respiratory system. And so I call them up. I'm like, I'm coughing up blood, and I feel terrible. Can I get in for an appointment? And they're like, well, we don't have anything for like 6 months. I'm like, holy crap. And I go, well, okay, how about this? You call me any time of day. If someone's canceled, I come in. I don't care when it is. I don't care if it's 30 minutes notice. I'll be in. And they're like, okay. Well, then like the next day they call me. I'm out of school or something. And they're like, you can come in like an hour. I go, I'll be there. So I leave school and I meet this lady. She's my pulmonologist and she's like very dapper. She has just a sense of style like I've never seen a doctor have. Super sweet. And she's like, well, okay, I want to get a closer look. We're going to do what's called a bronchoscopy, and we're going to go into your lung and take a peek around. And I'm like, okay, all right then. And so we do that, and it's a really unromantic experience. The more fascinating parts of this one is you go in and they want to eliminate your gag reflex. And, if I were in the adult industry, it would make sense. But the way that they went about it is really gross because you have this device that they spray in your mouth. And I have never tasted that flavor ever, and I hope never to. And how I would describe it is take a bottle of aspirin and pour it in your mouth and chew it up. And like pour some blood in your mouth. And then like embalming fluid. Right? So that is the flavor. And it doesn't go away. And it took them 20 minutes for them to numb my throat. And then, after which, they put me unconscious. I was laughing throughout it because I thought this was ridiculous. I was like, why don't you guys just put me out and then spray this garbage into my mouth? It is funny. I mean, this misery is ridiculous. So they put me in and then they put me out and I wake up later and it was profound. And later I come back for my visit to get the data of it. And they're like, well, Mr. White, we're going to need to do surgery. She's like, but it's fine. It's probably just stage 1 cancer. It's local. We're going to put a little hole here and another little hole there. These robots are going to go in. We think that your tumor is about the size of an almond. And we went in, your lung was collapsed and it was filled with blood. And we got some really good samples. We sucked out all the blood. We poked the tumor a few times and it's shot blood all over the camera. But we really think that we can get this taken care of. I'm like, so what's the recuperation time? They said, 1 to 3 days. I'm like, 1 to 3 days? They're like, worst case scenario, 1 to 3 days. I'm like, well, this cancer doesn't sound so bad. I can get back to my life. It seems like a relatively non-invasive procedure.
Yeah.
What was that?
I was like, it doesn't sound so bad for cancer.
Yeah, doesn't sound so bad. So then And I go to, she goes, well, but you need to see a thoracic surgeon. So I was like, okay, we'll go. I'm going to check
Now,
out
what's
this
that?
thoracic surgeon. That's the surgeon who cuts open your chest.
Oh, okay.
He's the big dog surgery guy because he'd be the one doing it, not her.
They got a doctor for each part, or is it just?
Oh yeah. There's doctors of all sorts of things,
all right.
And thank God, because it's pretty complicated.
Mm.
So I go and I see him, and it's like the creepiest place. The floor is kind of uneven. Everything is like the decor is like 40 years out of date.
Jeez.
And there's like tools inside of the facility that it doesn't look like it's in use anymore. It's just like this real weird, creepy vibe about the place.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and the guy, he has like these weird hand mannerisms. Like, I don't know, it's like his hands kind of float out in front of his body. His elbows are kind of in, and he's like this, I don't know, he's probably like his late 60s or something. I can't tell, but he looks old. And he has this really weird voice I've never heard before, real soft-spoken kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, Mr. White, I have bad news. There's, we don't believe that we can just go in and do this robot surgery. We're actually going to have to go in and remove your right lung. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we're going to have to remove your right lung. And, but don't worry, don't look into your cancer. It's your cancer type it's a neuroendocrine cancer. Don't go online and don't research it. You have a really good kind of cancer. So we're just going to go in and we're going to cut out your lung. And I'm like, whoa. Like, it's not that big a deal, and you want to remove my lung? He's like, well, yeah. I go, well, like, what happens if I don't do anything? He's like, well, it's kind of a slow-growing tumor. So I don't know. We don't know what will happen, but you'll have to get it eventually. And I'm like, well, okay, I want to get a second opinion. So I get a second opinion. The dude's like, well, your doctor, he's really good. He's been in the industry forever. He's had a lot of people die in his table, but he's had a lot more people live. And I would do the same thing. He's like, you could go. I had learned about this test. There's like this super technology with these robots where they go in and they can get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get the tumors. He says, but there's like one machine and there's 3 people who can do it. And only one of them has ever done it, right? So you're looking at $100,000 out of pocket in order for you to do this. And I'm like, well, I don't have $100,000. He's like, well, these are your choices. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just do it. I hurt like hell anyways. Let's get rid of this little jerk in there. And so all right, let's do this. I'm talking to he's like, I'm like, when are we going to do it? He's like, well, what are you looking at Thursday? And it's like Monday. I'm like, Thursday? Like, yeah, we need to get in there and do this. And I'm like, dude, I was thinking like next month or something.
Still trying you guys process, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, he's like, he goes, yeah, we get you in fast. I'm like, dude, I'm used to doctors like putting me 6 months out. He's like, no, this is important. We need to get this done. I'm like, well, how about this? Maybe not this Thursday, but like next Thursday. Give me some time to like live before I accidentally die on the surgery table. And what was really cool about that is I ended up meeting this girl about a week before my surgery, and she was super cool. But I met her wearing my Hawaiian shirt, and I got her to play some ERS, which is my favorite card game in the universe. The Egyptian Rat Screw. Sometime I'll show it to you. It is, for all you listeners out there, if you've never played ERS, you've never lived. And so we became friends with her, I guess, on Facebook or something after we hung out and stuff. But she was pair bonded, whatever. So we go to so I go and I get my surgery, and apparently I call her or something during my surgery. Not during, but later. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get into that in a second. So whenever I had my surgery, that was unbelievable nightmare. Unbelievable. It was the first time that I've ever experienced absolute 10 level pain. Wow. And like the epidural was unbelievably excruciating to go into.
Oh wow! And then, so from moment start to finish, it was horrible. Damn. Absolutely,
every step of the way. So I had this surgery, right? The epidural was ungodly painful. I have like these weird memories of during the surgery where there's like this black void, and I'm just kind of floating, and I'm hearing things, and I kind of think that I was semi-awake in parts of the process where the painkiller was muted or wasn't as good or something, or it wasn't as strong, where you have like these lucid, quasi-lucid moments that haunt you forever. And then after the surgery, I wake up and I can breathe great. But unbeknownst to me, I have like a tube in my lung. It's breathing for me. And within the first, like, I don't know, 4 hours, I have this this terrible nurse. And usually I'm not really critical of like nurse people because, they have a hard job. But she was just vicious. And a part of that was, maybe it was my filter, but I had no painkiller. So within like a first couple of hours after the surgery, the medicine in my epidural ran out and I had no painkiller. So I was experiencing 10 level pain for like, I guess it was like, the first time was I think it was like a half hour was the first time. Then it happened some hours later where it ran out again. And I was at 10 level pain for like another hour. And then after like, I don't know, it's like some hours later, we're still in the first like 14 hours of my surgery and it happens again. And I have like another hour of without painkiller after, because I have a hole in my side that goes directly into where my lung was. And they removed the entirety of my right lung. That in addition to where they went behind my sternum, which is, right there, where your trachea would be. People sometimes think I had a trachea thing, but really they just slice it open and sent robots down there. So, it was an enlightening experience. And I was in the ICU for like 2 weeks. And what was the cool thing about that is I ended up like that girl that I met. We ended up pair bonding along the way. She like visits me in the hospital. I don't know how I did it. Somehow I'm in like the worst state of my life, but I managed to win over the affection of this, smoking hot girl. And we pair bond after that for like 9 months or something. Really cool. It was a really neat adventure.
Shawn White. Just happened.
I'm sure. Yeah. We know the world. Weird stuff happens to be in the world, but it was really cool. Super sweet girl. We ended up breaking up inevitably. But so that started me on this journey. Immediately following the surgery, a little bit afterwards, no news is good news is what you typically think whenever it comes to health. I'm like, the doctor hasn't reached out to me. It must be solid. Mm-hmm. And so finally he reaches out and we go to the appointment. He's like, well, Mr. White, I have some bad news. And I'm like, bad news. Okay, well, we originally thought you had stage 1 cancer, but really you have stage 3 cancer. We thought it was the indolent, slow-growing tumor. Really, it's the aggressive one. You have what's called an atypical carcinoid. It's really aggressive, and you need to get chemotherapy. And I've referred you out to see an oncologist. I'm like, are you effing serious, man? Like, I thought we were done.
Now, let me ask
Worst case scenario.
I know I'm probably jumping ahead, but would that, for them removing the lung, was it kind of like a futile thing? I mean, if you're going to go through chemo.
Oh, no. The disease, my cancer, surgery is the first best option. The goal is to get it before it metastasizes. Mm-hmm. Once it metastasizes, then it's real hard to mess with. It's a really fascinating. I tell you what, like you probably now hear this from another person. I have an incredibly fascinating cancer. Really, really, actually, super cool. Whenever you look at it objectively, not super cool to have it subjectively. Like in of itself, it is the most fascinating cancer I've ever learned about. It is this cancer that is cancer. Cancer is normally like having a sloppy roommate who destroys your house. It never contributes, never makes anything. Okay, that's cancer. It just wrecks everything and destroys your life. And cancer is cooler than that, except for, of course, he's still that sloppy, horrible roommate who destroys your house. He also has a bunch of cats too. So, they make stuff, right? My cancer, it's a hormone cancer. So, what it does is the tumors will synthesize and secrete hormone. And the two that is typically that you find with a neuroendocrine cancer, especially if it's pulmonary like mine, is serotonin and histamine. And serotonin does completely different things in your body than what it does whenever it's a neurotransmitter in your brain. Everyone always looks at serotonin and they're like, oh, it's a great mood regulator. It's this awesome thing. Don't you want more? Well, no, you really don't want more because it really messes up your body. It's in incredible doses. And, unfortunately, I have friends my journey I've met who have neuroendocrine cancer, the terrible effects that the symptoms associated with the hypersecretion of the hormones that it causes are profound and miserable. I'm lucky that, I just get like flushing and wheezing because mine are histamines and serotonin typically. So it makes it more difficult to breathe. I get uncomfortable flushes sometimes. Your face gets red or something.
Okay, so
but
when you mean flushes, is face flushes?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's typically what it will be. And then you have the wheezing, difficulty breathing and stuff. The cool thing about that, I don't know if it's cool to you, but after having the lung removed, I end up getting asthma, and then you compound that with like the other, whenever the hormones get kicked up or screwed up by the disease. Really fascinating. And truly fascinating. The hardships that it's bestowed helps me as a practitioner in my own industry, as well as having this incredible ability to empathize with others, which makes me another, a really good wellness professional. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm good at what I do. And it is the hardships that's allowed me to get there. And I knew it whenever I was going through it. I was like, all these hardships I'm facing are going to help me help others see the path on their journey. So I end up going to chemotherapy, and I meet with this guy, this doctor, this oncologist. He's like, well, you have a pretty rare kind of cancer. It doesn't happen very often. And I go, okay, well, is there research on it? My oncologist said, no. I go, okay. Is there any specialists for it? And he said, no. Are there any clinical trials that are available? And he said, no. Like, so what are my options? He's like, well, this is your option. Don't look it up online. Don't look into it. Don't research it. Trust me, you don't want to. We're just going to go and do this treatment. Treatment was super out of date. I mean, he gave me medicine that would have been more appropriate, 30 years ago. I remembered what he said whenever I was in the room. And later I did some research. I found the book that he had learned from. It was pretty much verbatim what he said to me. And this book is just incredibly out of date, before any kind of advanced treatment options that were made available. And even to this day, my treatment is pretty subpar. I've never had what I would consider a competent physician who's in charge of my health and wellness. I've met them. I've traveled the country. I've met them. I know them, but I don't have the access to these amazing providers. Even though I know a lot about it. And there's also this threshold that you meet too, where you're like, I'm done. And when you get I had a chemotherapy that probably wasn't appropriate for the kind of cancer that I had. I even found out that my doctor knew pretty much nothing about my cancer. I should have went on and researched. I should have pushed against both he and my thoracic surgeon to look into it more, because one of the biggest things that hurts people with neuroendocrine cancer, which is the cancer that I have, is doctors push you against research. They push you against your own personal advocacy. And it sets people up for just catastrophe again and again and again.
I remember you talking about that a long time ago in previous episodes when we talked about certain things. And I think the crawl for the cure too. So now I
a lot of that,
see where it's coming from. Wow.
It's whenever you experience this exaggerated narrative, this shouldn't be. You would see this in a movie, right? You'd see this in a book. You would never expect it to be in someone's life. It does happen. I remember before getting cancer, this was a weird thought. I don't even know why I thought about it. It was like, Shawn, you're the main character of your story. You're not going to get cancer. Of course, I forgot about every single main character in all these stories that had cancer, But we have this idea that we're immune, and that because we are the main character in our own story, of course, it won't happen to us. But you can't afford to live your life and be afraid of everything. And it's an unfortunate situation with life right now, is everyone is afraid of everything, and they're not willing to live their life. And it's really important to make the most of every moment, no matter how hard it is that you think it is. brings a parallel for me with my mother. My mom died of pancreatic cancer whenever I was 25. And one of the best lessons that she ever gave me was showing me what hope was. And hope isn't knowing you're going to survive. It's far from what that is. Survival isn't like knowing that you're going to live. If that were the progressive, like the definition of hope, no hope would ever exist because we're all guaranteed to die inevitably. It's about making the most of every second that you have. My mother, she was she had congestive heart failure. Still lived her life the best she could, and inevitably she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Wow. When she learned that, she was like, I'm going to do something big with my family. And she loved cruises, and she loved her family. So she made it so that we could all go on a cruise together. In this memory, there's this other really important detail. Whenever I was working at the casino, I'll throw a shout out to him, actually, because I'm sure he's still there. So Mike, poker room manager, I don't know what he is now. That dude was the best boss I have ever had in the history of every job that I've ever worked at, period. He understands people. He cares about his people. He cares about his job. He understands the ins and outs of it. He made something impossible happen for my family, which was no way that I could go on this trip, but he made it happen. And that is the true testament of an amazing leader. Someone who makes something happen when it's impossible, when he knows that this life thing is more important. I knew it would probably put a burden on him and the rest of the team, but just a tremendous, tremendous human being. And by him doing that allowed me to really embrace the last moments with my mother when we went on this cruise. And so we end up getting back from the cruise, and she dies about a week later, and I'm able to be by her side as she passes away. That was really important because she showed to me that even though that she was dying, she was going to die a terrible death, and she was in unbelievable agony. She still had hope. She still made the most of every second that she had. She lived life to its fullest. And with that memory, it prepared me as I was living life like I was going to die. It showed me that no matter how much pain I was in the moment, some kind of existence was better than no existence at all.
Wow, that is awesome.